Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today we are talking about Nightmare Hall Book 2, The Roommate by Diane Hoh. Because I just read the first book in the series, The Silent Scream, and I had to read book 2. I really enjoyed book 1 a lot, and so I thought, okay, I've got to dive into book 2. I got to see what's going on here and see how this story progresses, if it continues with the same characters or if it's going to be different characters in the same location. And so I got a few things to tell you about this series if you've never read Nightmare Hall. Now, first off, I do want to address the very sad rip on the cover of this book. It came this way. It was very sad, but that's okay. I was like, oh, this is very interesting that the face of the one girl is taken off of the cover. Interesting if you've read this book. Anyways, no spoilers here. Anyways, Nightmare Hall Book 2, The Roommate, follows a different set of characters than Book 1 does. Now, it takes place at the same time as Book 1, however. So this book is happening along with Book 1. They're like on parallel tracks. You even have a couple of characters that cross over in this book where they kind of like make a cameo appearance, so to speak, and then they're gone. And I don't want to say who that is because if you haven't read Book 1, then it might tip you off to a couple things in Book 1, so I don't want to say anything about that. But there are some cameos. And the other interesting thing is I went into this thinking, oh, this is going to take place in the same like dorm building, Nightingale Hall, which is called Nightmare Hall by all the students at Salem University where these take place. But this book doesn't take place there. This book takes place in a totally different dorm called the Quad, which is the girls' dorm at Salem University. And it's like kind of these buildings that are all interconnected by this underground basement that is, as soon as Diane Hoh set that whole setting up, I was like, we're going to be coming back to this basement for a finale. I can tell you that. Because we go down into the basement underneath the quad, these different dorms, and they're all interconnected. There's like fitness rooms down there. There's study rooms. There's like large meeting rooms for like all the dorms to come together to talk about different, whatever things they need to talk about, meetings, all that kind of stuff. So they're all connected. A lot of the girls that stay at Salem University use that area as like a running track, like to run around as kind of like a loop so they can run around this whole thing. There's laundry down there, all the stuff. So that is definitely a huge part of this book's setting. And I think the setting is not as strong as when it's in Nightingale Hall. Nightingale Hall feels like a living, breathing character along with the other human characters in the book. And in this one, the Quad is more like feels a little more like an empty space where stuff is happening, if that makes sense. It's not the same kind of level that Nightingale Hall, or Nightmare Hall as the students call it, has in the first book. And I feel like the setting is a little weak because of that. However, the mystery of this book more than makes up for that. And the twist of this book more than makes up for that. In this book, you have this suite where there's these two dorm rooms that are connected by a Jack and Jill bathroom. And so the characters, there's 4 girls staying in these 2 suites. And so there's 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. And you have a situation where there's this girl, Danny, and then you have Lacey and Maureen, who all 3 of them arrive on student orientation day. So they're all there to move into the dorms, ready to go. And Danny is wondering, who is going to be my roommate? All she knows is that her roommate's name is Margot, but she doesn't know anything about Margot, and no one else seems to know about Margot either. They only know that she is arriving late for some reason, but they do not know why. So the characters are all kind of like speculating about who is Margot going to be, and then Margot does arrive, and things start to get creepy. Because soon Danny is receiving strange phone calls in her dorm. She thinks people are standing over her bed at night, and she wakes up to try and catch them, but no one's there. There is a lot of fun, creepy moments throughout this book that just just had me. I was totally taken in by the story. I had to know what was going on. You do know from the beginning that someone in the dorm is not who they say they are, but you don't know who it is. The very first prologue has like kind of from whoever this person's point of view is, and you find out that they are packing this butcher knife into all their stuff. And so you're wondering, who is that person? And the twist of who it is was pretty clever, I gotta say. I actually did not expect it. It surprised me, and I thought, all right, Diane Hoh, you got me. Like, I did not see that coming. Now, I do have to say, no spoilers here, but there was one chapter at the end of this book that I was wondering if it had got chopped up in editing, because this last chapter where there's some major reveals going down, you're figuring out what's going on, there is some head hopping that happens between characters in the middle of the chapter with no breaks in between, and it was really confusing. Now, what do I mean by head hopping? Head hopping is a term that writers often use when they're describing how a scene is being written by the author. So when there's head hopping involved, what's happening is the author is writing from, let's say, Danny's perspective, and then like mid-paragraph or even like the next sentence, all of a sudden it switches to Lacey's point of view, or to Margot's point of view, or Maureen's point of view. And it suddenly changes point of views, but doesn't give you enough contextual clues to let you know that that's happening. And so it moves from point of view to point of view, kind of sometimes even back and forth, and you're not even sure who is really narrating anymore. So that definitely happened at kind of a key scene at the end of the book. And I thought, wait, what? Like, can we back up 5 minutes? Like, what's going on? And I actually had to reread that chapter twice to try and figure it out. So I ended up reading it 3 times because I was trying to piece together, like, wait a minute. Like, who was saying that and who did that and what was happening over here exactly? Like, who did this? It was kind of confusing. And like I said, I was wondering if on the editing floor, it kind of got a little bit jumbled or chopped up a bit. And there was maybe some key like paragraphs that were taken out in editing that would have explained this transition a little more, because it just was a little jarring. And it took me a minute to figure out what was actually happening. And so I kind of had to piece it together after that chapter ended by what was happening in the chapter afterwards to say, oh, okay, that's what you were trying to do last chapter. That didn't come across to me at all. So I felt like that was pretty confusing, and it's so unfortunate that it happened at a really key sequence in the book. So that is something to know going into this, that near the end, you might get a little confused and have to kind of like reread and piece together a little bit to see what's actually going on. I do think there is one thing though that is revealed that changes quite a few things earlier on in the book and how you're perceiving them. And I think that that was a really interesting thing for Diane Hoh to do, which also brings up some rereadability of this book, because I think you could reread this knowing the twist and it would change the whole book for you, because you would now be looking at it with new eyes, knowing a key piece of information that you did not know when you first read it. I do think there are some great scary moments here. There's definitely some paranoia. Like, this one is paranoia, like to the maximum. And I do think it's actually pretty interesting to explore paranoia for a freshman in college, because you're leaving home, you're going to a whole new like scenario, situation, new people are all around you, you're getting to know all kinds of new, like just different people and experiences and cultures and things when you're at college. And so I feel like this captures that feeling so well. I feel like it really kind of spoke to that idea and just that paranoia you have about how am I being perceived? Like, what do people think of me because I'm not in my hometown anymore? I'm not in the places I always used to be. I'm away from my family a lot of times. And so it's like a whole new experience that is really difficult to navigate sometimes. And I think Diane Hoh really captures that pretty well. And I think from that perspective, this book really succeeds. I think, though, if you read this one, you're going to have a lot of fun, no matter what. So at the end of the day, I would have to give The Roommate a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book quite a bit. I really, really liked it. I do think, though, it has that confusing section at the very end where you're just like, wait, what's happening? Like, can you clarify a little bit here? Like, what's going on? And also, I think that there could have been a few things tightened up earlier on to help navigate those pieces later. But overall, this is a great second entry in the series, and I cannot wait for book 3. I actually found a copy of book 3. I ordered it. It is on its way to me as I speak and record this video, and I cannot wait to read it. I want to read all the books in this series now because I'm having so much fun with Nightmare Hall. I don't think I've had this much fun with a book series in quite a while. So I'm really enjoying it. I cannot wait for book 3 to see what happens next. So definitely check out Nightmare Hall. Oh, one other thing I do want to say. I think you could read this first. You don't have to read book 1 first necessarily. This does give away one tiny thing about book 1, but does not reveal anything about the twists of book 1 at all. There's just one small plot point this book does reveal about book 1. So you could read this one first. You don't have to read book number 1 exactly first. You could read book 2 first. So definitely give it a whirl. If you've got any of these Nightmare Hall books, try the first couple. I can't speak for the rest of the series yet because I have not read it, but I've read the first 2 and I highly enjoyed them. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.